It is the year 1938, the golden days of Kannada Renaissance. This extraordinary scene, against the backdrop of the Arabian Sea, was enacted by a group of writers, then quite young and not so well known. It was captured in a still picture by another writer, Dr. Shivarama Karanth. In the picture, in the middle, stands Vinayaka Krishna Gokak. To his right, Dattatreya Ramachandra Bendre. And to his left, V Sitaramaya. Today, they are all legends on the Indian literary scene, with 3 of the 4 having bagged Jnanapith awards.
Helpless he stood, suspended in mid-space. Nor flowery earth, nor starry heaven was his. I am punished for my sins, he moaned. What quarter now for me? Can I be whole, my love being swallowed up in darkest night, and I, a whirling speck of consciousness, move incessant up and down this vast? But his worst time was over, and it thundered as if to say that ignorance would end. It lightened, tearing open his inner eye. It was though a log of wood had burst, green with foliage in the heart of drought. A crack of red invaded the pomegranate.
Vinayaka Krishna Gokak was born in the princely state of Savanur in Dharwar district on the 10th of August 1909. His father, Krishna Rao, practiced law under a special license from the Nawab of Savanur. An intense devotion to and passion for the divine was inborn in Gokak. The Datta tradition was strong in his family. He would have loved to see the divine face to face as a schoolboy or even as a junior college student. His early poetry is full of this mystical yearning. But a great mood descended on him when he was an undergraduate in 1928. He felt he was on the brink of a revelation.
Dripping, dropping, draping mist. Timeless, spaceless, tameless mist. The mist of tears and human fears, of sorrow pouring down the years. The mist that drifteth as it list. Blazoning, blossoming morning light, pearly, gemmy, ruby bright. The light that shines beyond the lines of mist, and in man's heart enshrines a passion to outsing the night.
The best of his poems are buoyant and fresh, and fulfill his wish to reconcile poetic language to the ever-changing pattern of harmony called life experience.
There are not many tragedies in my life. One was that I lost my elder sister when she was just married. And I think that was a very tragic case. And the house to which she went to lead her life, that ruined her. Ruined her in the sense that she found it revolting. And she didn't want to be there at all. But only because of our persuasion she was there. And then we are almost certain, in fact, with what neighbors said and what others said, that they poisoned her. They poisoned her and threw her off in a well, and then started the story that she drowned herself. And Savanur is hardly 40 miles from Savanur, Hubli. But we never knew about it till late. That she died at night, on a certain night. And we received telegraphic news only at about 9 o'clock the next morning. And that itself was very suspicious. My father immediately went there and he found the same thing. Full of suspicion, and neighbors never talked about in whispers about all this. And my parents were very much disturbed. I was also disturbed. In fact, my sister, another sister was there. We all felt it very deeply because a girl on the threshold of life being disturbed like that. Even today I am unable to bear it. But I forgot about it after a little time. I was busy with my studies. And luckily, on my student side, there was a rich life. It was too fabulous for words. With Bendre there and the Gidera Gumpu, this was a new sensation and a new world for me, you see, which I entered. And with that impact, I forgot most of my sorrow. And then I wrote about it when I started writing. In a year or two, I started writing. And one of the first things I wrote was this story of my sister, you see. And I wrote it as vividly and as full of detail as I could at that time. And in fact, Bendre said that this is too detailed and too realistic. You have followed, you have stepped after life step by step, and there is no art in it. It's a pure experience, pure happening. Well, I was a little cross with him, and I said, well, how else is one to write? This is how I want to write. Anyway, that was a passing phase. This is what happened to me. I saw her in my dreams, and I'm fully convinced that she was killed. That was one tragedy. And what great things happened to me. My whole career was changed. I became a first-class student. It was the company of all these friends that set me to study literature. That was my love, and it always put me on top wherever I went, whether it was Oxford or Dharwad or whatever the place. And in the midst of all that glory, I gradually grew on this.
Fergusson College, 1936. Gokak leaves for England to study at Oxford.
ಬಾಳುವದರ ಸಾರವು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಮಲ್ಲಿಗೆಯನು ತರುವೆನು
I used to look at that line on my palm. And when I thought it was fully developed, it was time for me to go abroad. And it happened that way, by accident or by design, whatever you call it. My college was interested in me and planned my visit to Oxford. It was really a visit to Cambridge, which I wanted at that time. But no admission was possible in Cambridge at that time. It was full already. So I was turned to Oxford. It was all the same. I mean, except that there was an emphasis on language, early English at Oxford, whereas in Cambridge it was all free from old Anglo-Saxon and all that. And we began with Chaucer, quite modern. That was the difference. But we had a paper in language study, more philology than linguistics, and that we passed through. As for social life, which is you wanted to know, I am not the man cut out for that question, because I hardly went into any of these paths to understand the Oxford ways. For one thing, I was an advanced student. For another thing, I am not a very sociable person, rather reserved, solitary, that kind of person. And Oxford suited my temperament very well. I came for the classes, went back after lunch to my room again, and read what I liked, went to the library, studied in the library there, and evening where I went to a few friends, one or two, and we joined up, we had a talk on various things, and that ended the day for me.
Darkness. Light, darkness naked. Darkness unstirring, no light now but pretense only, pretense and pain and slow poison and death each moment, day after day. To what purpose? God in heaven knows. A beast of burden, I lift my head, crush me who will. Rahu swallows the moon apple, and Ketu seizes the sun diamond, while blind night sees all blindingly, where thou art and me.
The virtue of Gokak's poetry lies in its confident demonstration that the mobility and flexibility of poetic language can eventually disclose a meaningful harmony.
Solidity and space, grandeur and grace, above crests of earth in a sea of sky, blue and brown, and some when green. In this amphitheater of the gods, you invite man to sing and wing like a bird.
Long after, I had another tragedy, and that was the death of my daughter. I was in Hyderabad at that time, director of the Central Institute of English. Flourishing. In fact, I had gone to England on a visit when we lost this daughter. She didn't have any abnormalities about her. She grew up a healthy child, and she did her examinations in the university. She was studying for MA when she got this turn. She had unfortunately taken up philosophy, and she was studying philosophy. And I don't think that the philosophy which she read influenced her, because she was already well versed in Sri Aurobindo and in Vivekananda and Tagore and all these people. So I don't think that had much of any influence on her, though of course it probably disturbed her a little. And then she became gradually an introvert. And when it was a sort of split personality. She would be talking to herself. She would think of things away from the immediate surroundings. Like that, she gradually became an introvert and a split personality. Split personality has something else about it. It is not only is it divided, it's not integrated, but one part of it meets the other when they are opposites to each other. And that disturbs them all the more. So like that, people put into us the idea that she was possessed by some evil force. Well, we don't know whether she was possessed by some evil force or whether it was her own split personality that acted on it like that. But she could get into some furious moments. And two kinds of treatment were possible. One was to go to a psychiatrist and try that, and I did that. And there was a second branch to it, try an Oriental psychotherapist. So I saw a Muslim who dealt with these forces or evil spirits as they were called, and I also made use of him. But none of these two disciplines were of any use. They never changed her. They never influenced her one way or the other. And she in fact used to joke about them and to take to them jocularly, you see. This was what she did with them. Then the other thing was, of course, going to the saints and seeking their help. Now, this is, at that time, I was enamored of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, and even today I am. I was that from then. And so I wrote to the mother, this is a case with my daughter, and this is how she's a split personality, and could you give us some help? So she sent some blessing flowers to us and to this girl, and she said, this is a very difficult case.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊನರಾದಂತಹ ನೋವು ಫಲಿಸದಂತ ಯಾತನೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿತ್ಯ ಕೊಳೆಯುತ್ತಿಹುದು ನನ್ನ ಜೀವ ಚೇತನೆ ಇನ್ನು ಮೊಳಗಿಸಿದರೆ ಮೊಳಗಿಸುವೆನು ಅದರ ಮಾತನೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಮಲ್ಲಿಗೆಯನು ತರುವೆನು ನೇಹಕ್ಕೆಂದು ನಲುಮೆಗೊಂದು ಗುರುತನಿರಿಸಿ ಬರುವೆನು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರು.
Gokak was the first to introduce free verse in Kannada, and it was taken up enthusiastically by many poets. He was also the first to coin the word Navya for the modernist trend in Kannada poetry. His address to the Kannada Sahitya Sammelana in 1950 in Bombay focused on Navyate in Kannada literature.
ಸ್ವಚ್ಛಂದ ಛಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಜಲಕ್ರೀಡಾ ವೃತ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುದಿನವೂ ತೆರೆಗಳು ಹಿಡಿದ ತಾಳಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಗೀತವನೊರೆದೆನೆಂದು ಗೀಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಡ.
In unfettered verse, dancing day long to the rhythm of wild sea waves, Underwrite me not that I composed my songs to the dance tune of wild sea waves. Whoever held captive the sea in his palmful, whoever sunk a well hoping to dry up the ocean, the substance of even a single sea drop is not contained in the slated forehead of millions of words. Do not minister to the multitudinous sea, the dribbling rights of a six-line stanza, my friend.
ಉಕ್ಕಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮಲಿ ಸಮುದ್ರದ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಮಿಕ್ಕಲಿ ಮೀರಲಿ ಮುನ್ನೀರ ನಿರ್ವಯಲು ಜರ್ಜರವಾದುದೆಲ್ಲ ಮುಳುಗಿ ಹೋಗಲಿ ಜಲ ಸಮಾಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ. See, the moment you settle down on the deck and pulled a decker chair and sat there, you had your full vision of the sea. Maybe within a few minutes, you passed from the shore and it was all land disappeared and it was water all around. Excepting that some tremendous impulsion in me which wanted to come out. Kande ninnanu modaligomme kande begins like that. That's the first poem.
First poem,
ಅದು ಮಾಡಿ ಅದೇ ಸ್ಟ್ರೇನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 4-5 poems ಬರ್ತಾವೆ. Where there was an impulsion which could never be resisted. And I wrote like that. ಜಲ ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ವೃತ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ. That's how it begins. ಛಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಜಲ ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ವೃತ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ ತೆರೆಗಳು ಅನುದಿನ ಹಿಡಿವ ತಾಳ ಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಗೀತವನ್ನು ಹೊರೆದೇನೆಂದು ಗೀಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಡ. ಗೀತವನ್ನು ಹೊರೆದೇನೆಂದು ಗೀಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಡ. ಸಮುದ್ರವ ಸೆರೆ ಹಿಡಿದವರುಂಟಿ begins like that. And I can't say that this was a question which was consciously posed by me or asked by me. It came out of me. You see, I was so full of this that it took some 4 or 5 poems for me to get out of this.
The Floating Township of P&O steamboat provided the first confrontation with an international community for young Gokak. The blue waters of the sea evoked rhythms at once profound and turbulent. Thus were born his Samudra Gitagalu, the sea verses. Naive curiosity, proud confrontation, self-defensive irony, and relapse into his national identity are stages which can be traced in almost every poem in the collection, Sea Verses.
A child, cradled by the waves I grew, and drew breath with the water I drank. Inflated praise, inflated pain, censure, fame, ignominy, pricked and prodded me to shrink or swell according to the season that reigned. They raised within me and around me heaven and hell, more hell than heaven. A scampering animal, I lived on, and the battles raged around me stark, like my sweat in the summer heat. Here stand I, child of ocean, in the rigged boat to sink or sail, whether or not light shows its face or night grows its forests. Round me, or where the mountain was, is the sea, and where the sea was, is the mountain. I live only for the pole star, a magnetic needle trembling, and I journey on and on.
Geleyara Gumpu was a turning point in the career of Vinayaka Krishna Gokak. He not only turned to Kannada for self-expression, but posed some of the most vital challenges to European culture in his thinking.
1921 it started, Geleyara Gumpu anta. The Geleyara Gumpin friends eraru. These were friends who were pupils of Bendre. They were interested in the writings of Tagore, Gandhiji, Nehru if he wrote at that time, and all these people. And having done that, they naturally, anyone who could read out to them something that was interesting, they regularly had, I don't know whether they had a class for that every week or something like that. They met together. Where they met together also I have no idea because I was not there at that time. They met either in Bendre's house or in the school somewhere, but they met regularly. And they were interested in all this. So, and Bendre used to be there. And so this way their mutual education went on. I joined there in 1925.
ಏನಪ್ಪ ವಿಶೇಷ ಗೆಳೆಯರ ಗುಂಪಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಿ?
What is special about Geleyara Gumpu? Asks G.B. Joshi, a playwright, publisher and a contemporary of Gokak. He goes on to elaborate it in the words of Bendre. Geleyara Gumpu has no membership, no fees. It is enough if you are a friend's friend.
ಅಲ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅವಾಗ 1926ರಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮ್ಯಾಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಆದ 28ಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಬೇಂದ್ರೆ ಮಾಸ್ತರು ಗೆಳೆಯರ ಗುಂಪಿನ ಸಹಕಾರದಿಂದ ಆಲೂರು ವೆಂಕಟರಾಯರ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬೇಕರ್ ನಾಟಕವನ್ನು ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು. ಆವಾಗ ಬೇಕರ್ ನಾಟಕವನ್ನು ಗೆಳೆಯರ ಗುಂಪಿನಿಂದ
Bendre took over the journal Jaya Karnataka from Alur Venkatarao for the group. He was the cover editor and we, the group members, ran it.
ಗೆಳೆಯರು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು.
He started telling me the first thing. First thing is you should write in Kannada, which came most unexpected stroke to me. And, having written fluently in English, what is this writing in Kannada? And then Bendre said, well, it's the mother tongue and you must write in your mother tongue. James H. Cousins was going around the country at that time. So then he advised me to get back to Kannada, but not to give up English because you write well. Then we prepare to go out for a walk. Walking through the market of Dharwad in this crowded ways. And but he would talk at the top of his voice. Allen one badige iditidru kayaga. As a teacher, he is a small person and wanted to give other people feel. But he invariably carried that in his hand. Then he started his discourse in the streets. And I was enchanted, fascinated. I have never heard a man speak like this on any topic, of all topics, poetry. And went off in ecstasies and I was really thrilled and hung on to his lips. And like that we had a long walk. I don't know where we all crossed so many crossings, recrossings and so on. And then finally came back. And for 1 hour I think, it went off. It was a beautiful language, beautiful ideas. Everything was new. I never heard such things.
Bendre, the poet's poet. I was sailing little paper boats on the river of life. You loaded them with the rich merchandise of your own mind. You put them on the high seas and made much of what was little. I dived deep into the springs of your being, and the deeper I dived, the deeper was the spring. In the sandy desert of life, yours was the only stream. I would have piped a few ditties. You gave me the organ voice. I would have flitted on the fringe of life. You led me to its inmost shrine. I would have but touched beauty by the hem of her garment. You made her suckle and fondle me like a child.
Dharwar was the Cape of Good Hope for literary aspirants of Bombay, Karnataka, comprising Dharwar, Belgaum, North Kannada and Bijapur districts. At the turn of the century, people of all castes and creeds had donated generously to starting an arts and science college at Dharwar. The Karnataka College started functioning in the beautiful, idyllic surroundings on top of a hill.
ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ನೊಳಗಿದ್ದೆ. ನಾನು ಬಂದಾಗ ಫೀಗೆ ರೊಕ್ಕ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ದಾದಾಗ ಹೋಗಿ ಕೇಳಿದೆ, ನಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಾಲ್ಗೆ, ನೀವು ಶುರು ಮಾಡೋ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಹ್ಞೂ ಅಂಥೇಳಿ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಶುರುವಾಯಿತು. ಶುರುವಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಭೋಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಗತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಹ್ಯಾಂಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತು ಗೋಕಾಕನೇ ಅವಾಗ ಡೆಕ್ಕನ್ ಫೆಲೋ ಇದ್ದ. ಅವ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಬ್ಬಿನ ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿ ಇರ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನನಗೆ ಫ್ರೀಯಾಗಿ ಫ್ರೀ ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾಡಿದ. ಪರ್ಕ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕಾಲೇಜಕ್ಕೆ ಇವರು ಹೋದ ಮೇಲೆ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಲೆಕ್ಚರರ್ ಅಂತ ಪರ್ಕ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ದವರು ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಫಾರಿನ್ಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ರು, ಆಕ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಡಿಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ರು. ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಆವಾಗ ನಾನು ಪಬ್ಲಿಷರ್ ಅಂತಾಗಿದ್ದೆ ಮನೋಹರ ಗ್ರಂಥಮಾಲೆ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಆವಾಗ ದಾದಾಗ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ನೀ ಹೆಂಗಾದ್ರೂ ಹೋಗಿರ್ತಿದ್ದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಪತ್ರ ಬರಿತಾ ಇರು, ಹೆಂಡತಿಗಾರ ಬರೀ ಇಲ್ಲ ನನಗಾರ ಬರೀ ಪತ್ರಗಳನ್ನು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವ ಹಡಗರಾಗಿಂದ ಶುರು ಹತ್ತಿದಾಗಿನಿಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಪತ್ರಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬರೆದ. ಹಡಗೊಳಗಿದ್ದಾಗೂ ಬರೆದ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದ ಮೇಲೂ ಬರೆದ. ಅವನ್ನಷ್ಟು ಸಮುದ್ರದಾಚೆಯಿಂದ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹೊಲಿಮು ಅವಷ್ಟು ಲೆಟರ್ಸು ನಾನು ಹಾಕಿದೆ.
ಬಣ್ಣದೊಳಗಿಂದ ಬಯಕೆಯೊಳಗಿಂದ, ಬಣ್ಣದೊಳಗಿಂದ ಬಯಕೆಯೊಳಗಿಂದ ಒಳಿತಿನೊಳಗಿಂದ.
Besides 20 volumes of poetry, Gokak did much valuable work in other genres, such as fiction, drama, travelogue, literary criticism, and philosophical essays.
ಮುದ್ರೆಯೊಳಗಿಂದ ಬಿಡಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಬಾ, ಬಿಡಿಸಲೆನ್ನ ಬಾ, ಬಾ 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 ಓ ನೀರದ ಬಾ.
Amongst them one can mention Samarasa Vejivana, an epic novel of great significance, and Bharata Sindhu Rashmi, a stupendous work of about 35,000 lines in blank verse.
ಸುತ್ತ ರಚಿಸಿರುವ ಸ್ವರ್ಗದೊಳಗಿಂದ ನಿರ್ಗುಣಗಳ ನಿರ್ವಯಲ ಸೆರೆಯಿಂದ, ಗುಣಗಣಗಳ ಮುತ್ಸು ಮರೆಯಿಂದ, ರೂಪದಿಂದ್ರ ಜಾಲಗಳ ಹೊರೆಯಿಂದ, ರೂಪವಿಲ್ಲದ ಶೂನ್ಯ ದೊರೆಯಿಂದ, ಜಡದವಾದ ಜಡದ ಜಡೆಯಿಂದ.
There is in his poetry a spontaneity and effortlessness maintained by an attentive concern for the processes whereby words are chosen and images ordered.
ಬಿಡಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಬಾ, ಬಿಡಿಸಲೆನ್ನ ಬಾ, ಬಾ 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 ಓ ನೀರದ ಬಾ.
It is the change towards world citizenry that is the hallmark of Gokaks' personality. A romantic with his love of dreams and visions, his mysticism suffered a sea shock when he sailed for Oxford, and he was almost transformed into a Western radical. Bill Sherwood, Gokak's tutorial mate, paid for Ben Bradley to travel from London to Oxford to meet Gokak at tea and convert him to Marxism. Of course, at the end of the discussion, Ben Bradley threw up his hands in despair and exclaimed, You are an incurable romantic, Vicky.
There was the English Poetry Society. I joined that, and I used to attend lectures delivered there, and I met some of the poets
Like?
like Auden and who is this Welshman?
Dylan Thomas.
Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas and
Spender.
Spender. Exactly. And a few others like that. And sometimes prosemen came, Wells, and they delivered lectures. That was also interesting. It brought you into touch with contemporary writers. But I committed myself to a project. You see, I proposed to write a poem for the Newdigate Prize, The First Man on the Moon.
I saw the Moonman floating on a cloud last night. He came down in a haze of glory. The cloud stopped on the summit where I stood, and looking on the valleys, dim with dreams, and slumbering in their loveliness, he came, his dark wings a-waving. Gokak's talent is versatile. A long poem that he has written on Hitler bears ample testimony to this fact. Apart from its global implications, this poem is significant for its style too. Its satirical tone reminds one of a tragic-comic drama of the Expressionist school. Asura, Hitler and the poet. Faded was the face. His joy in killing had left him. His fast-fading smile betrayed the bitterness within him. He shook the world and turned history upside down. Hitler was an astrologer fan, but now that he was a doomed man, there was no consolation in astrology. He felt like seeing a poet now. He was keen on knowing how exactly a poet would sum him up, his achievements and his failures. After some thought, he selected a poet for this singular honor. He stooped so low as to see a poet so far. The poet whom Hitler visited came to the door to receive him. After seating him suitably, the poet smiled and asked him what he, a poet, could do for him. Hitler knew well that there was no scope for resentment. He made some polite inquiries. Had the poet any of his recent effusions with him? Did he write some stories too? Which did the people like better, stories or poems? The poet smiled a little this time and said briefly, "Due to the heat of your ordinance, sir, all poetry has shriveled away. Indeed, all creative effort. No poetry can see the light these days. Nevertheless, I could read to you a poem or two if you have a taste for the play of imagination." Hitler flared up at this. "Why is there this irony in your talk? Remember, Hitler does not cease to be himself, even in death." The poet laughed heartily. He said, "My life is but a blade of grass. You are a farmer who threshed a farm continent of human beings. I am but grass before you. But what I say is the very grain of truth. If the lips are locked and the heart stops, the poet will stride the air and be heard. You know that words lead to deeds. I don't have to repeat this to you, keeping Goebbels in mind. What do you say, sir, to the massacre of innocent millions which you ordered in a trice?" What the poet said about poets puzzled and annoyed Hitler. Among the words that crystallize the nature of this second war, there is a word which sticks to you alone, sir. What is that word? "Asura," said the poet calmly. "What does that mean?" Hitler asked. I might have to consult my Sanskrit expert, the poet replied. Asura means demon. Rakshasa means vital demon. Demon? Exclaimed Hitler in utter dismay. Yes, sir, said the poet. That's the difference between Tweedledum and Tweedledee. But let that be. This man calls me monster. Himmler, take him away.
There are two things in this. One is the lyric rhythm. The lyric rhythm, the tune, if you call it so, that is one thing to appreciate. The other one is the network of ideas, of impulsions that are there behind the lyric. And these impulsions also make themselves felt. It is in the interweaving of these two that the essence of the lyric lies. Parijatadadiyali yudado samadhiyu. Parijatadadiyali yudado samadhiyu. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ತಿಳಿಯಲು ಇವುದೇ ನಿನಗೆ ಅವಧಿಯು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ತಿಳಿಯಲು ಇವುದೇ ನಿನಗೆ ಅವಧಿಯು. ಪಾರಿಜಾತದಡಿಯಲಿ ಇವುದೋ ಸಮಾಧಿಯು. There beneath the Parijata tree is a shrine.
Unknowingly, you were a light to my simple heart in its upward flight of trance and dream, O maiden. In my mind's unclouded sky, like Rohini, you shone on high and made me sing, love-laden. The music of your voice, the grace of swan-like steps, the moon-like face, and your triumphant bearing are classic in their loveliness. So said my heart. Further to press its claim, it lacked the daring. No base desire, turbid lust, has ever betrayed the simple trust and the pure adoration with which I worship you. Your eyes, your laughter, and your glad surprise are all my consummation. Beauty, it's true, is ever new, though the fact is known to few. This newness lies, I find, not in the curving of the lips or the tapering fingertips, but the call of mind to mind.
Sharada Gokak and Vinayaka Krishna Gokak have 3 daughters and 1 son. His wife, Sharada Gokak, has also published a collection of poems and an autobiography of considerable merit. During the last years, Gokak lived in Bombay with son Anil Gokak and his family, and among the images of his spiritual mentors.
Quite a few friends of mine had gone to see Sai Baba. And they were very, absolute seekers. They were not just sentimental god hunters or things like that. But they were real seekers. They really wanted this experience in life. These were some members of the Gadayar Gumpu, you see. And these were the best specimens of humanity that I could see at that time. And so one of them who had gone to see Baba, he came to me on his way back. He stopped at Hyderabad on his way, and I was with me for a day or two. So he said he had been to see Baba, and so I said, what do you think of him and of his claim that he is God, he is an avatar and this and that? He said, I believe in it. Then I said, this is something which needs to be examined. And then, but I never wanted to go to any other avatar or God or whatever it might be. When I had accepted one and I was fully convinced and deeply interested in him, and that was Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So I said, why should I go anywhere else? I don't want to go. And I left going. I will do with Sri Aurobindo and the mother. That experience and that influence is enough for me. I don't want any other. So I didn't tackle any other on the spiritual side. But it happened later on that I had to go and see him. In the first place, what elevates you, brings you peace, which otherwise you find difficult to have. You are at one in tune with yourself. And if being in tune with something else helps you to be in tune with yourself, you are not lost, you have been created by it, created by this other tune that has come out and tried to help you. And it is one which you accept yourself, you have accepted of your own accord, and you are in it. So I don't know what is, how rationalism comes in at all. In the first place, rationalism is only when you want to be just a rationalist and nothing else. You see, you want to go scientifically by reason, take every step, consult every book on a dictionary on rationalism and find out what you should do and should not be doing. But where you are planning your life, not according to rationalism, in fact at no time was it my requirement in life. I never paid any heed to it. I went my way. I went my way, and if I found that it was inconsistent and I did not square up with what I wanted, I discarded it. This is what I did. The other thing was, if it squares up with me and with my aspirations, helps me to get peace and strength and stability, this is what is required in life. This is what I want. And if rationalism is against these things, then I don't want to be a rationalist or have anything to do with rationalism. You see? And after that, when in daily life, you don't want rationalism, but you want a reasoning mind. The mind itself must be alive all the time. And it must be able quickly to judge and reflect and expel and welcome and do all these things one by one, one after the other, if all of these are necessary. I have been a very uncompromising rationalist this way.
Chetanti sumati nam yajñam tathe sarasvati maho arna sarasvati
Vinayaka Krishna Gokak taught English language and literature with distinction. Ferguson College, Pune, Wellington College, Sangli, Rajaram College, Kolhapur, and many more places in India.
Chatvari vag parimita padani tani vidir brahmana ye mani.
He was the founding director of the Central Institute of English, Hyderabad. He was the director of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and Vice Chancellor of Bangalore University, as also Vice Chancellor of Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. He was the chairman of Sahitya Academy. He was elected an honorary fellow of the Academy, this being the highest honor it confers on a man of letters.
Ambitame naditame प्रशस्ता इवं स्मसि प्रशस्तिमं
He was awarded Jnanapeeth Award in the year 1991.
The literature of Professor Gokak, who is being honored today, has at its core the vision of Samanvaya, harmony. Whether it is in the coming together of the literary traditions of the East and the West, whether it is antiquity or the modern predicament, whether it is situations and emotions which are as seemingly antithetical as they are varied, different streams and strands interact in the writings of Professor Gokak, and the vision of life that emerges here is more complete, closer to the truth. The high point of this spirit of Samanvaya is reached in his magnum opus, Bharat Sindhu Rashmi. This Samanvaya, however, has not come easily or quickly. I am sure he will testify to this. Behind it, there has been a long lifetime of agonizing reflection.
The poet's consciousness is like a sensitive plant. It's a touch-me-not, and it has in it a sensitivity which penetrates in a subtle way whatever the scenes, sights, objects or persons that it comes into contact with. It does not identify itself with them like intuitive perception, but allows them to touch its very core. One remembers in this context the experience conveyed by Hungry Stones, one of Tagore's short stories. It is the hint of a supernatural experience that haunts Tagore's character in the short story. He spent a night in a building which had rich associations with history, sensing eerie presences persistently, insistently. But he was unable to locate them and identify them. In fact, sensitiveness, the other part of the poet's personality, may be identified with what Herbert Reed calls the common denominator of our sentiments and emotions.
As teacher, as poet, as spiritual seeker, Gokak has won admirers and friends wherever he has worked. At Pune, Sangli, Visnagar, Kolhapur, Sikandrabad, Bangalore, Shimla and Delhi. He is remembered with affection, awe and reverence.
Vinayaka Krishna Gokak passed away on April 28, 1992 in Bombay.